If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts. La 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 la, I'm not listening, la 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 la. Does that sound familiar? Some of our kids do that to us when they don't want to hear us, right? They just, maybe they don't do it out loud, but they certainly do it. They just don't want to hear it. Go, what? Talking to me? What? Me? What'd you say? Or maybe it's the spouse looking at television. What? Oh, me today? Oh, me to do something? So it's very easy. We block each other out, or somebody's on the computer or reading the newspaper. We are very quick to come up with ways to, well, not hear when we don't want to hear, right? I mean, we're pretty good at it. I mean, if we're really honest, we do it quite, it's hardly even subtle at times. What? Who? Oh, me? You're talking to me? And what happens is we're good at it with each other, but we're particularly good at it with God. Because we do the exact same thing. Maybe it is the computer that we spend so much time on, or maybe it is television watching sports. I don't have time to pray, and yet we'll watch a 3-hour game, right? Don't have time to go to church, but we attend a 3-hour game with lots of stuff going on, right? We have plenty of reasons which we call them reasons, but there are plenty of excuses where we don't listen to God. We don't make ourselves listen to God. I mean, but you're here, so you're the remnant, the few who have chosen to come and listen to God here at the Eucharist. And so the question is, like, and maybe some of you are home, or even though you're at home, you're sitting watching, so somehow something has touched you to trying to tune in, to listen to what God has to say, to not harden our hearts. So here's the part that's really tricky. So we have the first thing the devil tries to get us to do is to not listen to God at all. Like, so busyness is our primary weapon the evil one will use to get us. We don't want to listen to God. God has no role for us in the world. We're left alone to do our own thing. So that's the first and primary lie the evil one will tell you. So busyness becomes a great distraction. But even when we're a commit to listening to God, we have to admit it's not so easy. Like, so where does God speak to us? Like is it in my head? Where does God, like, how does that work? You know, like, people ask me all the time, like, I don't understand, like, what am I looking for? What am I listening for? So we haven't been good at teaching people how to pray. And that's one of the biggest struggles. So one of the places, there are many ways in which to listen to God. But the primary and the first place God is going to speak to us is going to be through creation. It's his first spoken word. And it came to be. And there was day, and there was night, and there was animals, and the second day, and the third day, and the fourth day, and all came through his first. So his first spoken word was the creation. So God is going to speak to us through his creation. Now, in that creation, like, look at the beautiful nature. How can you not be in awe at the intricate design of a flower? But it takes time to look at the intricate design of a flower, of just a simple fern, to realize that the fern branch, that every leaf of a branch is a mirror of the branch, which is the mirror of the branch, which is mirror of the branch, all the way down to the molecular level. That's just one plant. How could you not look up at the mountains and the skies and just be in awe? Or the beautiful animals, and maybe even the creepy animals. And you say, like you have to wonder sometimes, like, when a mosquito bites a big chunk out of you, or a wasp, like it did the other day, took a big old chunk out of the back of my head. And I said, man, like, what's the purpose of a wasp? Like, really, like, I often think we could do without it, like a mosquito. And yet, in God's creation, they all have a role. And then it comes to human beings. How could we not marvel as we look around today? Not one of us is the same as the next. Not a single one of us in the entire world, in the history, have we ever had two human beings the same. Billions of people created, and every one of us unique. How can we not marvel at all of that and say, God is speaking to all this? And then it's what we can communicate with one another. God uses us to communicate to each other, like He is using me to communicate to you this morning, but one of you will get communicated. God is speaking to us all the time, screaming, harden not your hearts. Listen to His voice. Now, one of the other ways in which we believe that God speaks to us is through Scripture, and that's what we're relating on this morning. The very thing that God, but in particular, Paul says to the Romans, look, he says, look, love one another. That's the fulfillment of all the law. Love one another. Pre-gospel, before the gospel was written, Paul was proclaiming this. And that is for a message for every single one of us. To love every single person, even the people we don't like. Right? But then comes the gospel. And Jesus gives us a real zinger. How often are we called to forgive? He wants us to forgive. And before we come to the table, we ought to be reconciled. And He gives us a methodology how to do it, like go one-on-one. If you don't resolve a one-on-one, take somebody with you. If that doesn't resolve, then go to church. And if not, then let them be. You've done your work. You're off the hook. You've done what I've asked you to do. Like the way He talked to Ezekiel, is I asked you to speak my word, and if you do that, then you're off the hook. But we've got to do the work. So the question for us this morning, as we come to the table, you're here, and you've come to listen for some way, shape, or form. And so let us not harden our hearts. Let us listen to the voice of God, screaming to us through creation, through each other, and to our call to reconciliation. Let's take seriously that job this week, and let us celebrate the voice of God, which is ever present among us. You see, the secular world will tell us that the world, the universe, doesn't care about you. Doesn't care rat's diddly about what you do or don't do. The universe might not, but the Creator does. The Creator knows every one of us by name and cares deeply for every single one of us and speaks to us through the created universe so that we can enjoy this brief moment on earth, so that we can even more enjoy His presence forever. So today, let's harden not our hearts. Let's listen to the voice of God in creation, in each other, and our call to love and to be reconciled with one another today.